Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 95, making your vanity metrics useful.
Like, does this sound familiar?
Oh my God, I have so much to do today.
Don't forget to breathe.
But I have almost 400 emails in my inbox and 30 phone calls to make.
Have you looked into getting a virtual assistant yet?
Oh, and I need to schedule all my social media posts.
Did you drink anything today?
I had coffee.
Did you eat today?
Did I mention coffee's a bean?
This is Small Biz Life.
Hey guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Small Biz Life, and I can't believe this is episode 95.
Yes, we are growing in episodes like weekly.
Oh, it amazes me how close we are to episode 100.
Yes, we are.
That's insane.
So if you've not noticed yet, this is something that will continue. And if you want to make your life easier, just go ahead and hit the subscribe button, whatever service you use.
Well, why don't we tell them who we are in case they haven't, this is their first listening experience.
Excellent.
So my name's Kristen Ingram.
And I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And we are a husband and wife team of small business owners. I am a certified public accountant.
And I am a IT manager, I guess.
You're an IT wizard.
I'm an IT super wizard.
Because one of the things I think is really neat is like when people come into our group and they have like any sort of technology question, Jeff will find the answer. Mm-hmm. You know, and if you're not in our group on Facebook, go to facebook.com/groups/smallbizlife. Because if you have a technology question, Jeff will find the answer.
That's one of the neat things with my background in technology. I'm not someone who's hyperly focused on one thing that makes me a superstar at one thing, but I have a very broad comfort in looking at technology.
Right. So that's why he's the technology guy in the company. and I take the role of more the, I'm the numbers person. I am the leader, I guess, if you've listened to our previous episodes.
You are the CEO of Ingram Digital Media.
I am the CEO of Ingram Digital Media, which is very exciting. So this week, we thought that it'd be a good idea. You know, we're talking about mid-year review in our HQ group,
yes,
which HQ is our paid monthly membership site. And we've been talking to them about looking at your vanity metrics in a different way.
Yes, in one of my previous lives, I had a lot of experience at developing metrics for people, and it always drives me crazy when people use metrics that aren't very useful to answering the questions that they're trying to get, which is common because sometimes things are easy or they're desirable. You know, like for instance, you know, if you have a website, obviously your visitors or users, depending on where you get your analytics from, or registered users if you have forums on your site, your downloads, your views, all sorts of really wonderful, but ultimately in the scope of business, kind of meaningless numbers.
Right. And that's really why they're called vanity metrics, is because, you know, they look really pretty, but they don't necessarily tell you how successful a business is.
And, you know, there's one thing if they're on your website, you know, I mean, visitors can be important. Like we have a site where we get ad revenue from, so visitors are kind of important there. But even that, though, the strict number of visitors isn't as meaningful as other things that you can do to make it really meaningful. And beyond that, you get to social media and they really become vanity because you feel great when you get a lot of retweets when you post something, or you get a lot of likes or shares or hearts or boots, depending if there's a special boot reward on Facebook that week. But really, that doesn't really convert to anything for your business, except for maybe a little bit more organic reach.
All right. So we spend a lot of time looking at visitors, downloads, views, likes, shares, how many members are in your group, how many comments do you get, you know, how many subscribers do you have on YouTube, you know, how many followers and retweets and repins. And
don't feel bad for doing it because like right now, literally as we're doing this, we're both on our phones checking our download numbers. So we get it too. We understand, you know, I mean, it's nice seeing growth in those things or seeing bigger and bigger and even bigger numbers.
Right. But are you looking at metrics that are really important? Things like how many customers do you have? What's your customer growth? What are your conversions? How much revenue are you generating? How much is your profit growing? What's your cost per customer acquisition? What's your cost per ad?
Oh,
Those are things typically we're not looking at because we're looking at how many likes did I get this week? And so, what we're trying to get you to do is we're trying to get you to take your vanity metrics and turn them into something that actually relates to customers' conversion, revenue, and profit.
And these should kind of vary depending on what kind of business model you have. For example, like Google does look at the amount of revenue they get per internet user. Most of us aren't going to quite have that metric, or it would be a really depressingly small number, a large small number with the amount of decimal spaces. But there are ways that we can all look at these things to make them more meaningful to our individual businesses and make us feel like we're not wasting quite so much time when we look at those vanity metrics.
Right. So, so instead of looking at your web analytics, okay, and saying, okay, I had 5,000 people who visited my site last month. Okay, that's really cool. So let's look at how many people visited your site. How many of those were new people, right? And this is something you get right out of Google Analytics. They will tell you if they're a new user. Then look at how many email subscribers did you get last month. So we're looking at how many new people came to your site and how many of them became email subscribers. Because hopefully you have some sort of funnel in place, and we've talked about funnels in previous episodes, that will turn those new subscribers into paying customers.
Yeah. And the thing is to think about that is kind of like think about if you pay attention to that kind of stuff, you probably have a pop-up and maybe a landing page or a couple landing pages where you try and draw in free opt-ins, maybe a sidebar opt-in. And, but if you look at the overall number of visitors, new visitors, and the number of new subscribers, you kind of get an idea of how those convert overall. And how you're doing at converting the coldest traffic you have, because they're your new visitors, they're your new users who are visiting your site. How well are you converting the coldest possible traffic you can have into someone who's in your email marketing?
Right, exactly. And I think, that's a really good thing to look at because that will tell you, how effectively your free opt-in item is, right? Is your pop-up coming up at the right time? So that way they have enough time on the site in order to kind of get a feel for who you are before, the pop-up comes up.
And now I would suggest that you look at your conversion rates for your landing pages. You look at your conversion rates where you can, but it's also good just to know overall how you're doing, for new users to it and for old users. And you kind of can't split the two apart. You don't know which of those people who signed up have been to your site 5 times, but you can get a basic idea. If you've had a lot of growth in your website and have had lots of new subscribers, there's more than likely that you're converting your coldest traffic better.
Right. And then, now that you have all these subscribers on your list, now you can look at it and say, okay, so out of my total number of subscribers, how many customers do I have versus how many subscribers I have?
Yeah.
Because typically someone who becomes a customer, they're on your email list, right? Because they were on your email list previously or you added them to the email list when they bought. So you should be able to look at all the people on your email list and say, okay, if I have 100 customers and I have 20,000 people on my email list, that's a pretty low conversion. Typically it's about 2 to 3%, right? That's a decent number.
That's your click through on an email.
I thought 2 to 3% of email list size converting to customers was a good number.
Well, they're clicking through. They're clicking through a call to action. So that would probably be a pretty good size for customer base.
I think the two numbers we're talking about actually have the same percentage.
Okay. All right.
So if you think about if you've got 20,000 people on your email list, right, then you should have 2 to 3% of that number, which is what, 400 to 600, right? Is that, 400 to 600 customers. So, if your email list is growing faster than your customer base is growing, then you may not be doing a very good job converting them into customers.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's another way to kind of look at those vanity metrics. How often do we say, well, look, I've got this humongous email list, but how many customers have you generated from that list?
Yeah. I've not really seen any good study overall. I know MailChimp does have a good one for their service that we've seen, where they kind of go through different industries and what like conversion rates should be to get them into your list, to get them to click through, which it would make sense that that number does correlate with customers and your customer base. And if for your industry you're exceeding the average in one area but not the other area, you need to focus more in another area. If you get them on your email list and then you convert them at a very high rate to your customer list, you probably need to spend more time trying to grow your email list.
Right. And there's a lot of things you can do with tracking, with Facebook pixels and all sorts of other.
You can tie Google Analytics and Facebook pixels into most email services now.
But, the thing that you're looking at, though, is you're trying to determine, ultimately, we only have a set amount of time during the week. And one of the questions that I get probably most frequently from people is, where do I devote my time when I'm working on marketing? And looking at, converting on Facebook, converting on your email list, converting at networking events. You've got to kind of look at these things and say, okay, what is the most effective way for me to sell my product? And I'll tell you, and I harp on this all the time. I know I do, but that's my job.
Yes, boss.
If you are a local business, one of the most effective ways for you to generate new business is going to be through live networking.
Yes. Because once again, as a small business owner that offers, I'm sure, a great service or product, it's ultimately you that your customers typically want to do business with. I've known people who don't go with the person they think is the best because the person they think is the best, they don't like. Or there's something about doing business with them that they don't like. So you have to keep this in mind, as a small business owner, no matter how much you want to escape it, ultimately, if your plan is to be a small business, you are going to be the face of the business. And it's not just knowing when or how much time you should be spending on your marketing, but where.
Right, exactly. And, the nice thing with Google Analytics is you can see where your traffic is coming from. So if you are trying to drive traffic to your website, which is always what we're trying to do when we're marketing, you can see like where, did the traffic come from Facebook? Did it come from Pinterest? Did it come from Instagram? Is it coming from YouTube? Where's it coming from?
Yeah.
And, if you're not looking at those numbers when you're trying to figure out, hey, where do I spend my time? You're missing out on a really big opportunity to become hyper-focused on one of those avenues.
Yeah. Because once again, part of it's about efficiency because you have a limited number of hours. So, if you can make, essentially $20 an hour doing live networking versus, $5 an hour, doing Facebook Lives, if you need to grow your business, where should you spend the time? It's at live networking. Because you should be tracking that too. It's like one of the nice things I know with active campaigns is we can put in customers, but not connect them to an email list. But we can then track that they're from live networking. We know and can track information about them beyond just what email list they belong to.
Right. And I think that it's really important to remember that you can build up an email list really quickly. You can build up a Facebook presence really quickly. You can get out and start going to live networking events. It's going to take time for people to like and trust you.
Yeah.
The old adage that, in order to make a sale, you typically need between 5 and 20 touches.
Mm-hmm. And if you have a highly skilled field that you're in, or field that is very intimately tied to an individual, it's going to take you more towards the 20 touches,
right?
Where the 5 touches are, going to that grocery store again and again.
Right. And, if you kind of think about, I think that this is one thing that we miss in sales in general. And this is a little off topic, but I think it's kind of important, especially when you're looking at where to spend your time, either online or in person. A lot of times we forget our own decision-making behavior when we are trying to sell to other people.
Yeah.
So for example, if somebody knocked on your door and said, hey, we're doing free computer scans today. Can I have access to your computer?
Mm-hmm.
What would your reaction typically be?
Mine would be no.
Okay. And just think this is your personal computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if your first propensity is to say no, that is probably going to be the reaction of most people that you approach with a similar, pitch. Even things like, when people they do cold calling or they knock on your door. Mm-hmm. How receptive are you to that?
Mm-hmm.
Don't expect people to be more receptive to those things than you would be.
Especially too, as a small business owner, if you can convert people in those things, that's great, but it's probably not good use of your time to do it, because the number of hours it's going to take to pull in the leads will take up a lot of your time. And remember, let's go back to time budgets here a little bit too. You have a limited amount of time. Mm-hmm. And ultimately what we're really trying to get here in these discussions are, yes, we love looking at the vanity metrics, and there are other metrics that we kind of ignore. But, if we can push those two things together, we spend less time at someone's door or on the phone when it's not effective, and spend more time where we're getting the most bang for the buck.
Well, and, and here's another thing, a lot of times we're looking at the likes on our page. We're looking at, how many followers we have on Pinterest, but we're not spending a lot of time looking at how much web traffic we get. It kind of amazes me when I talk to small business owners. They can tell me approximately how many likes they have on their Facebook page, how many followers they have on Instagram, approximately how many on Twitter. Mm-hmm. They can't tell me how much monthly traffic they have on their website, though. Mm-hmm. And I find that a lot of small business owners are spending a tremendous amount of time generating content for their websites, and then they never promote it.
Yeah. Or they push it up once to their Facebook page, but then have 15 other posts that might or might not be even related to the content.
Right. And that's the thing, ultimately, when you're working with people online, your website is what's going to make you money. Mm-hmm. And so if you are not working to drive traffic to your website, you are doing yourself a disservice.
Mm-hmm. And, and the other important thing is too, as a small business owner, we typically think about the buckets of our business. Well, this is online time. This is social media time. This is making videos time. This is doing this or that time. But they're ultimately all connected into one thing. And ultimately that's to generate profit, so you have money to take home to feed yourself and your family.
And that's, it frustrates me when talking to small business owners and they're like, I spent all this money on this website. I spent all my time on my website. My website doesn't generate any sales. Mm-hmm. Well, how much traffic do you have to your website?
Don't know.
I don't know. And then we go look at it and it's like, they have 200 visitors a month. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, well, let's promote the website. Mm-hmm. Let's get some people on there.
Or let's make sure there's a mechanism that's predominant on the website. I've been to many small business websites where they have a store and you can't find the location, the hours, and the phone number is nowhere prevalent on the website. But that's the kind of traffic they're looking for. Mm-hmm. It's great to they're paying someone to generate content for them probably, which that's a different thing for a different day.
That's another topic for another day.
But then they don't try and take advantage of any of the traffic that they do get. They don't try and especially grab local traffic and pull it towards them. They're not trying to create Facebook ads. So when people are at the phone at the cafe across the street drinking their coffee, a coupon pops up if they go visit the store right across the street. Mm-hmm. You can do that on Facebook, people.
And one really simple thing that a lot of restaurants are terrible with this. And I think I just noticed restaurants because we're always looking for new places to eat. Make sure that your website is connected to your Google listing.
Yes.
Because it's amazing how many times I will search for a restaurant and their website is not linked to their Google listing. And so people assume you don't have one, and then they can't look at your menu and they go on. Okay. Yes. And I see this for a lot of small businesses that they don't know to do this. So let's look at some better ways to look at your vanity metrics. One way to look at them is per customer.
Yeah.
So we talked about this a little bit. Look at how many customers you have versus how many likes you have, how many subscribers you have, because this is going to tell you how well you are converting those likes or those email subscribers into customers.
And one of the things I like to think about here too is, especially early on, the most common question I hear about social media is, where should I be in social media? Which one means you haven't spent any time looking at other similar businesses to figure out where they're doing well in social media and try to get into those places because there are people there. But it also means that you're not paying attention to the effects of stuff. So if you look at your likes, and if you can watch your likes on Facebook go up and your revenue goes up, then by all means, spend more time in Facebook. But if you get a whole bunch of more likes on Facebook because you've spent so much more time and you have a better plan there, and there's no revenue, coming, and you're now lagging 2 or 3 or 4 months, and not really seeing any appreciable increase in revenue, that it's nice to have stuff there, but maybe that shouldn't be taking up so much time.
Right, exactly. Another way that you can look at this is you can look at them per dollar of revenue. So how much revenue are you earning per like or per email subscriber? This is similar to per customer, but this also tells you that, let's say your email list isn't growing, okay? But maybe you have 10 different products and your average customer only buys 1 or 2. Are you doing a good job upselling people or telling your existing customers that, hey, I have these other products that you might be interested in?
Or especially too, like if you're selling products, you're probably going to generate more customers, and it's a less meaningful number because you should have a lot of your customers be people who like your stuff because, oh, wait, I like that t-shirt. I'm going to like it. And maybe I buy a couple. Maybe I only buy one ever. So ultimately, it's the per revenue numbers that start to mean more sense. And I think for most businesses, especially early on, that per revenue number is probably the most important one.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I've always focused on in my CPA firm is how do I increase the amount of revenue that I have per customer? Because it is much easier to convince an existing customer to buy more from you than to try to get new customers. And so, if part of your strategy isn't increasing, your dollars of revenue per customer, that needs to be a strategy starting tomorrow because that's really low hanging fruit.
Well, especially too, if you've not reached the revenue numbers you want, the thing you need to be focusing on is increasing your revenue. And other things are important too. Controlling your costs, yes, that's important. But ultimately, until you start getting the types of revenue numbers that you need to maintain your business and then start to, plan its growth or to be able to grow with it, you're in trouble. You need revenue, because oftentimes people talk about needing to decrease their expenses, but then you look at their numbers and go, you can decrease your expenses to 0 and you're still not going to make enough money.
Right. And I see that a lot, when people ask me questions about how we paid off all of our debt. There's only so much you can cut back before you really need to make more money.
It's usually about increasing the shovel size. I think that's a Dave Ramsey thing.
And that's how we paid off all our debt is we greatly increased the size of our shovel.
Yeah.
You can look at per hour. And what do you mean by per hour?
Well, per hour is ultimately how much are you getting paid per hour spent tweeting, per hour. How much do you actually make? So maybe your business brings in $100 an hour, but do you get 52 cents? And that's one of those really great ones. If you feel like my business is making money, but I'm not, that's a number I would start looking at because, and this is something you can see in businesses too, is especially in today where you can outsource or have subcontractors working with you, you can spend a lot of time increasing your revenue, but you're not taking home any more money.
Yep. Yeah, and I see that quite a bit when people start, they want to outsource everything because they want to focus on the core mission of the business.
Which is nice.
But then you find that they're working 80 hours a week
to feed 80 people.
Right, to feed everybody else.
And with them, they're 81.
Right, and, they end up making, $3 an hour while everybody else around them is making 20.
Now, and an additional argument, though, some of the people actually are making more money than they realize, but they just, aren't paying attention to things beyond their vanity metrics again, and they don't even realize how much they're making.
Yeah, and that's why, when I work with people, that's one of the first things that we look at is we look at how much money are they really making and how many hours they're working, because we want to get a baseline.
Yeah. And it's sort of Econ 101, right? If you could make a higher hourly rate doing what you're doing, working for someone else, you're not where you need to be in your business. You should be making more. Like when I was a 1099 IT person and I worked as a consultant, I know that the companies that billed me out made twice the hourly rate that I did. Think about that. If someone else can bill me out at $25 an hour and I'm making 20, in my own business, I have to do a lot more work to get that $20. I'm not bringing in enough revenue.
Right. No, and I think, that was kind of ultimately why, I was kind of led to start my own accounting firm is I saw what I was getting paid and also what I was getting billed out at. And I said, wait a minute, that's a lot of money. And I know like that's why some people start their own businesses. The problem is that they forget that there's the marketing involved, which you're not going to get paid your hourly rate for. Yeah. There's, all the administrative stuff, which you're not going to get paid your hourly rate for. And so a lot of times, when we look at this, we only look at, my hourly rate, I bill out at $200 an hour. That's great. But if 30 hours a week are not billable, then you just cut your hourly rate, to 50. Yeah. Because you've got to account for all the hours you work, not just the billable hours you work. Okay, so the next one is a cost per metric. So explain this one a little bit.
Now, this one is, I think, more important once you start building up customer base. You've reached that revenue number that you need to make, and you have a pretty consistent. You can kind of predict your growth, not perfect, but pretty well, right? Once you do that, you need to start focusing on your cost per metric. So if I'm getting, 300 likes a month, but I have 17 pieces of software that I actually am spending, between $1 and $15 a month on to automate the process to get all of the stuff I need to get all of those likes, and on the ads I'm using to boost up my content, then, unless I'm generating revenue on top of it, and ultimately profit, I want to start looking at, well, I'm spending a lot on my Facebook. So are there ways I can start cutting my expenses there? It's a great way to be able to look at your metrics and go, you know what? I'm doing good now, but let me get the most out of my money and see if I can replace some of these tools with new other tools to try and maximize the profit ultimately.
Right, exactly. And then this one's really important for if you're doing anything with ad revenue on your website. Typically, we're looking at earnings per 1,000.
Millions if you're lucky.
Yep, if you're lucky. But that's typically how ads pay you, is it's per 1,000 views, per 1,000 visits.
And even if you go get them yourself, it's probably going to be based off of something very similar to this. Earnings per download, earnings per website visitor or user, or however they want to do it. Typically, when you're working with someone else and they're paying you either for a sponsorship or for advertising, it's going to be based off the traffic that either goes through it, or sometimes it's even like maybe a click.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, what this is really about, this is about learning how your business works better, right? So a couple things that you can learn by going through this process. One, if the types of outreach you're doing correlate to more money, right? And that's ultimately what we want, right? Is we want our business to make more money. So is the type of outreach you're doing actually doing that for you?
Because think about it. You spend 6 months killing it on Instagram. You have a lot of Instagram followers, and it doesn't benefit your bottom line. You might want to go, hey, is there something else I could do to try and get some money out of Instagram? Or should I stop spending time and or money in Instagram and focus more on Snapchat or on Facebook, and definitely not Twitter?
Well, and the thing is too, is like, this is even a really good thing to do if you're doing various types of, live sales. So, if you're doing cold calling, figure out how much time you spend in cold calling and how much money are you making. If you're doing cold visits, how much time are you spending on that and how much money are you making? Versus, if you go to a networking event, how much time did you spend on networking events and how many leads did those generate? How much money did you make?
And that's not even saying give up necessarily, because if you're ultimately making some money through those, it probably doesn't hurt you. But one of the great ways to decrease your cost might be to outsource that to like high school students. Why do you think so many of the people who come up to your door and knock on your door and try and sell you magazines or windows or a probably new car? I'm sure it will be any day now. Someone will come knock on my door and try and sell me a new car. It's not the business owners.
Right. Well, and the thing you've got to think about when you're looking at those door-to-door salespeople is think about what they're actually selling. They are typically very high price point products. Things like windows, siding, roofing, things where, they can afford to have, 5 kids canvassing a neighborhood.
Because if a kid gets one per weekend, they've probably made money on that weekend.
Exactly. Right. So you've really got to think about that. If you're doing door to door for a low cost item, you're probably never going to make that money back.
Yeah.
Where to best spend your outreach time. So once you start tracking this, you'll know in the future where to spend that time. And then when you become really good at this, you can actually do revenue and profit estimates based off, okay, if I spend X number of hours on Facebook next month, and I know that every hour I spend on Facebook, I make this much money, I can determine how much my revenue will be next month.
Because I tell you, when I talk to people a lot about streamlining processes in their business, whether they're strictly technology or just how to improve something in general in their business, the biggest thing people always is that they don't know how to estimate their own time or money. And because it's difficult and sometimes it's annoying because you don't want to know how much time you actually spend doing stuff or how much it costs you. But this is a great way where, you'll find out if there's a correlation, over time that really, if I get more Facebook people in my Facebook group, I get more money. Then you want to get more people in your Facebook group. But there might not even be a correlation. Like sometimes maybe you do and other times maybe you don't. So they're good things to have, but they're not going to consume your energy, at least from the standpoint of trying to generate revenue.
Right. And, there are a couple other things you can learn from this. This can help you determine the proper length of content that you put on your website, the proper types of content you put on your website. If people aren't finding the pages that you want them to find on your website, you might need to look at improving your navigation. We did a whole episode on that as well. So there's a lot of things that you can learn just by trying to tie your vanity metrics to some important metrics in your business.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions about this, feel free to ask in the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/group/smallbizlife. And if you really want to take, a deeper dive into this, this month in Small Biz HQ, we are discussing mid-year review. And so we are looking at...
And this is one part of 1 week.
Right. This is one part of 1 week. We're looking at your financials. We're looking at customers. We're looking at improving business process. We're looking at growth and education. If this is something that you think would help your business, if you go to smallbizlife.com/HQ, you can get your first month of HQ for $1. Okay.
What?
Your first 30 days is $1.
I did not put that up. What are you talking about, woman?
It'll be up.
Okay.
So if you use coupon code REVIEW at checkout, your first 30 days will be $1.
I'm sorry, that is insane. There's just too much I don't know. Well, you are the boss, I guess. So
That's right.
I'll have to concede.
So, and the cool thing with this too is that when you sign up for HQ, you also get access to all of our previous content.
Mm-hmm.
So we started HQ in January. So you're going to get the first 6 months of content that you can go through, you can watch, you can, we do a lot of worksheets and downloads. Well, because it's funny because like our audience wanted them, so there's videos you can watch, you can download the audio, you can download all of the worksheets. $1 for your first 30 days if you enter coupon code REVIEW.
And you know what else? We've turned the Dreamcatcher assessment into a paid mini course. Few hours of content plus the worksheets, really walking people through because it was too complicated for just a few instructions that came with it. So we expanded it out. You're going to get that as well.
Oh, and you also get the access to the free time management course that is a $49 value. You also get access to that as well.
Jeez, I don't know. For $1?
For $1. For the first 30 days, for $1. So,
this will be limited time, I'm sure.
Yeah, so check this out. Use coupon code REVIEW. Go to smallbizlife.com/HQ. And, it's an amazing service. You can read the reviews. We've got some reviews up there. We try to provide a lot of value to those folks. Every month. We also have a Facebook group where we do accountability Monday through Friday. So if that's something you need, $1 to check out the first month.
To get accountability for every day.
Every day, Monday through Friday. Yep. And that's one thing that our members really love. So, come join us for that. It's $1.
And a monthly call. There's just a lot of good stuff.
A lot of good stuff. So coupon code REVIEW, go to smallbizlife.com/HQ and come join us for the ride.
This was Small Biz Life.